the greatest movie I've personally seen in the last 10 years just completed its opening weekend at the box offices. Dune 2 hit the public theaters for everybody who wanted to go to see it, Ann and I went to go see it for the third time yesterday. Rob, I know you've seen it at least a couple of times already. And it looks like a bunch of people went to go see it because the box office is now in. Dune 2 originally reported as being $81.5 million. They've now had the actuals come out, and it's $82.5 million. This comes to us from the folks of Variety who said this. Dune Part 2 is riding those massive sound worms all the way to the top of the box office charts. Director Denis Villeneuve's big budget sequel has collected, again, it's now corrected to $82.5 million in its domestic debut and delivered a mighty necessary jolt for struggling movie theaters. It's the biggest opening weekend of the year and the largest since last October's Taylor Swift concert film, The Eras Tour. Taylor Swift over sandworms. This is an outstanding opening for a science fiction sequel, says David A. Gross of movie consulting firm Franchise Entertainment Research. Audiences are connecting with these human, vulnerable characters. All right. So the first Dune movie, under unfortunate circumstances, opened to $40 million. Now, you take that with huge asterisks of the fact that HBO put it on HBO Max the same day, and they were still kind of in the throes of a pandemic situation, so not everybody was going back to the theaters yet, but $40 million. And I've said for a while, I think if they can double that, they'd be sitting really, really good. And they certainly have. $82.5 million. As again, I checked, the regular movie theaters that in my AMC Tyler Galleria were significantly full, but the IMAX screenings and the AMC Dolby Prime screenings were like booked for days. The IMAX 70 millimeter screenings in like Universal and whatever are booked for weeks for this. And I'm going to be fascinated. And look, I don't want to get ahead of them. I want to give, Denis and the folks at Warner Brothers a chance to celebrate, $82 million opening. That's awesome for a film like this. That is not for everybody. But I'm going to be very curious to see its second weekend drop off because
that's what I'm wondering.
I don't think it's going to be much.
No, I don't think it is either.
I think there are going to be a lot of people who, number one, saw it and want to go back.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a lot of people that didn't see it and are hearing everybody raving that this is a masterpiece, want to go and check it out. And I think there are probably a lot of people who just want to see it on the biggest screen possible, and all their IMAXs were booked up this week, and they want to go back. Now, I'm not saying it's going to have a 20% drop, but Rob, I'll tell you what, I can see a lower than 50% drop, which would be incredible. Anyway, you saw these numbers. What's your reaction to it? And what are we going to see next week?
Well, I think, John, you always say movies are an experiential event. Never more so than this film. I mean, you don't just watch this movie, you experience this movie. And I think people are starved for and I think to a certain extent, in a way, Barbie and Oppenheimer were both very experiential movie events, not just because the Barbenheimer phenomenon, but when you go and saw both of those films, they immersed you into each individual world. And that was just a wind-up, though, to this. And even though people had a taste of it, I think that when people are seeing this, it's thought-provoking. It's really interesting to watch. You feel this movie down to your skeleton if you're watching it in IMAX. And it's just this overwhelming experience. You really feel, I think, when you walked out of it, that you've been changed a little bit. And how often do you get that from an experience? And, even the people that aren't or maybe not particularly interested, they're hearing other people say this and they want to see it themselves. And I think, I read a really interesting Deadline article. I covered it on my own channel where Mary Parent and the people at Legendary, because of the day and date release of Dune 1, they didn't know at first whether they were going to pull the trigger on Dune 2. And they said, you know what? We believe in this movie. They actually did research, and they went to all the different foreign territories, and they extrapolated out, would Dune 2, without this day and date thing on Max, do we think it could make money? Because Legendary financed 80%.
That's right. Yep.
Of the movies. And they did the same for Dune 2. And they had the balls and they had the thought, this is how Hollywood should work. They're like, you know what? We know this movie's going to make money. We're going to roll the dice. We're going to get the money. And they made it. And these are people that knew. They bet on their gut. They did the research themselves, and they went out and made it happen, and they're getting rewarded. And to me, that is the kind of thinking that the entertainment business needs, and they're getting rewarded for it. And I think you know, you hear Gladiator 2's budget's in excess of $300 million, and this was less than $200 million. Planning, all the people that knew what they were doing. I mean, this to me is an example of what Hollywood filmmaking, especially studio filmmaking, should represent now. And I love this film. I think it's truly an example of what Hollywood is supposed to be doing at this level and at this point in 2024, at this point in the 21st century. And I think everything about this film makes me optimistic about movies in general and the future of cinema. Is that too much?
I was doing just a small ask. I was doing an open spoiler discussion yesterday, and I think it was yesterday, and somebody asked me, you know, John, you said you thought if Dune came out in 2023, it would be the heads-on favorite to win Best Picture. And it's like, you know, Oppenheimer is really good. Oppenheimer is awesome. I'm looking forward to it winning Best Picture at the upcoming Academy Awards. But I said the reason, and this goes to what you were just saying, the reason I believe that Dune would easily win Best Picture, Best Director, like all that kind of stuff this year, is because not only is Dune 2 a triumph of filmmaking, but I said, what you got to understand is this. This is being voted on by the Academy. Dune 2 is the kind of movie that Hollywood people have been waiting for again. Because Dune 2 harkens back to the days of Cleopatra and Ben-Hur, those classic epic scale Hollywood kind of movies. And Dune 2 might be the best modern representation of that harkening back to the old age. And if you don't think that there are hard-ons raging all across Hollywood executive suites seeing a movie like this.
Oh, yeah, because that bucket's everywhere.
that Dune bucket is everywhere now, raging everywhere. I mean, this is something the Academy will vote for in their sleep, because this is the type of movie that these Hollywood execs, that these Hollywood insiders, this is the kind of movie they've been waiting for forever. And I think a lot of fans have been feeling like this is the kind of movie we've been waiting for. Again, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Factor. You know, guys, some days it's great to prepare your own meal, but some days it's great to have wonderful, delicious meals already ready to go. Factor's delicious, ready-to-eat meals makes eating better every day easy. Wherever tomorrow takes you, be ready with pre-prepared, chef-crafted, and dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your door. You'll have over 35 different options a week to choose from, including keto, calorie smart, vegan, veggie, and more. And there's even more to enjoy with over 55 nutrition-packed add-ons that help make your weekly meal planning even more delicious. So what are you waiting for? Get started today and have a feel-good week of meals ready to go. They've got snacks, smoothies, and more. Discover a wide variety of easy options for the entire day, like breakfast, midday bites, and more. And guys, you get to save. We've done the math. Factor is less expensive than takeout, and every meal is dietitian approved to be nutritious and delicious. So guys, head to factormeals.com/Campea50 and use the code Campea50 to get 50% off. That's code Campea50 at factormeals.com/Campea50 to get 50% off. Rob, I know you said that yourself several times about this film.
I also think it also shows the kind of, like, look, Denis Villeneuve, like Christopher Nolan, came out of the independent tradition. They were making their own indie movies. If you look,
by the way, they love each other. Like Denis Villeneuve and Christopher Nolan are the hugest fanboys.
I mean, if you look at Polytechnic or Incendies, or you look at Following and Insomnia, you know, these are people that were allowed to hone their craft. They made their way into the studio system. They were given opportunities to work within the studio system, making something like Prisoners, or in Nolan's case, making Insomnia. They're working their way up and honing their craft. They weren't some like indie darling that won a festival award for $1 million movie, and then they get thrown into the deep end to make a giant tentpole property. These are true artists. These are the kind of filmmakers that the studios used to employ all the time, that we have very few of that can work. They've earned the rights to do these things, and it's great to see. And they don't need to spend, I mean, it's not inexpensive, but they don't need to spend all the money. Oppenheimer and Dune 2 are both films that did not break the bank. They were made by people that knew what they were doing, with crews that knew what they were doing, and they deliver what only the studios can deliver, make no mistake. But you have to have the filmmakers that understand how to make these films, that have a team of people that work with them, and this is the ultimate example of what Hollywood filmmaking should be.
Ray, can you look up for me? I think it's about 200 million. What was the production budget on Dune 2? I think I heard it was 200.
Oh, I thought it was 190.
190. Okay, so
Something like
let's
that.
go. Let's go 190 to 200 million, right? And Ray will get the actual number.
Would have been less if they could have made them both
190?
together.
190.
So 190 million dollars. Okay, now to your point about, because I've been saying for over 2 decades that I think studios generally spend too much money on the movies they make. Now, I want to hold up 2 movies for you. Dune, being made for $190 million, and Fast X, that was made for $360-something million, literally double what, close to double what Dune spent. And I just want to forget the quality of the movie. We're not asking about which is the better movie, but I'm going to say, in your mind's eye, put up Dune 2, put up Fast X. Which movie looks like the more expensive movie? Dune 2 by a mile. I mean, Dune, like, I don't mind when studios spend $150, $200 million in a movie. If I'm sitting there in theater and I look at it and I come out going, I feel like I saw every dollar on the screen. Like every dollar was put on the screen in this movie. And it's just such a win on so many different levels for that.
But also, I mean, as a fan, someone who loved the Fast and the Furious franchise, I look at Fast X and I'm like, you've taken a franchise that I love and this is what you've delivered with the most money you've ever had to work with? Because, it's a movie made by committee. It's a movie driven by what the studio wanted. It's a movie where the first director left. And you're thinking, this is ridiculous. Pull the plug. Warner Brothers, why don't they give us Coyote versus Acme? I don't know. But we get this film, and you realize this is exactly what Hollywood's supposed to do. It's not easy to do, but it's because you have filmmakers that know what they're doing, that are allowed to do stuff, with, more importantly, with a financier that believes in their filmmakers. And Mary Parent was there when this movie was being made. She was in the desert for the 2 months they were shooting in the desert. I mean, you don't get that. That's how Hollywood's supposed to work.
And by the way, there's a story that needs to be told about, because you remember when the first Dune came out, and I'm freezing on the name of the guy who's the CEO of Warner Brothers at the time. Killar, thank you. But Jason Killar made the decision we're going to put it on HBO Max, and Denis Villeneuve was pissed. He was so angry, he wrote a voluntary op-ed piece for Variety to basically say, fuck y'all for doing this to me, blah, blah. I mean, there was a real time that it looked like we ain't going to get a Dune 2. So I think there's probably some really big kudos for studio execs around somewhere who, and granted, there was a leadership change and an ownership change in Warner Brothers, that at some point, Denis Villeneuve and studio heads got together and said, listen, we're going to make this work. We're going to make this work. We're going to make you happy again. And thank God that happened, because we got one of the greatest movies I've ever seen.
Well, and they also didn't tell anybody they were going to do it.
Yeah.
The people at Legendary who put up 80% of the budget got effed on this.
And they got blindsided. They had no idea that Warner Brothers was going to take their movies that they spent 80% of the production budget on, didn't even bother telling them, and came out and made an announcement, oh yeah, we're going to take all these movies and put them on HBO Max day and date, that we put them in theaters. And they got a lot of lawsuits.
And guess who's not running Warner Brothers now?
Jason
AT&T
Killar?
and Jason Killar. Of course, there's other problems, but
Let me ask you this, though. Let me ask you this. I don't think, Ray, you can look up for me what's coming out next weekend. We do got Kung Fu Panda 4 coming out. That's going to attract,
totally different audience,
a family audience and stuff like that. But still, what do you think Dune 2 is going to do next weekend? Are we looking at a $50 million second weekend, a $30 million second? I think we could see over $40 million.
I completely agree with you. And if you look, the theaters that are really loving this are IMAX, and people are seeing this. Everyone knows to see this on a big screen, because John, in the 50s when they made movies like Ben-Hur and Cleopatra, it was to combat the onslaught of television. Now we're almost in the same position. How do you get Hollywood back on top, especially after these strikes? I hope IATSE doesn't go on strike, because that could kill the industry. Yeah. But these are the kind of movies that bring people back to the theater. We're riding a wave. Oppenheimer and Barbie, and now this. And hopefully, we've got a few other movies. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, Deadpool and Wolverine, the new Alien Romulus movie. There's a lot of interesting stuff that hopefully we'll get. Hopefully they're great, and they provide those experiences. But this is what Hollywood does best. More, please. Please, sir. May I have another?
Yeah, because, I always say that, right? That when people go to a movie and have a great time, they want to go back again, right? Like, that's why Kevin Feige cheers for DC movies because if people go to a DC movie, a comic book movie, have a great time at a comic book movie, they're more likely to come back. I came out of Dune, and one of the first questions I asked Ray today when I came into the studio today was, "Hey, when does Godzilla versus Kong come out? And then when does Planet of the Apes come out?" And then because like I'm excited to go back to the movies again.
Yeah.
And that's what a great movie can do. It can like spark that fire and even help other movies
And
around
Coppola's Megalopolis,
Yeah,
one of my
that's
favorite
coming.
directors who sold his vineyard to finance his own $120 million movie. You go, Francis.
We got nothing big really opening other than Kung Fu Panda 4 and Imaginary, that horror film. I believe.
it.
Yeah.
By the way, that's an interesting looking little film.
It looks pretty good.
Yeah.
There is like Love Lies Bleeding and a couple of comedies, but yeah,
You and I are both pretty interested in that Love Lies Bleeding. I'm interested in that. But anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? Dune comes out, makes $82.5 million on its opening weekend, a film that I say is not a popcorn film for the masses. I think this is a great result for it. How do you think it's going to do in its second weekend? Are you going to see like a 60% drop like a lot of films have been having lately on its second weekend? 50%, maybe lower than 50%, whatever you guys think, jump down to the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Make sure you like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget, we have a daily podcast called the John Campea Show podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting app of choice. Go and subscribe to it today so it'll be there when you need it.